ladies, we're going to be diving into inner child healing, and this section and this area of personal growth has so much to uncover about ourselves. So I'm really excited to unpack it with Katie, who is an expert in really unpacking the inner child and why we operate and do certain things often comes from our inner child from way back when. So um, we're going to talk on all things that. We're also going to talk about affairs, but often we're asking questions around ourselves and how to deal with an affair when we're in an affair. And today I'm going to be asking Katie a lot of questions around where the man is at, who the married man is at emotionally, in his place, so that we can understand why he is doing what he is doing and what he ultimately wants, to get a bit more perspective on that, so it can help us with the decisions on where to go from there. So welcome.
Thank you. I'm like, where to begin with this?
Yes. Well, first, tell us a little bit more about what you do.
Yeah, so if you can't tell by the accent, I'm from Ireland and my name is Katie O'Donoghue. So like Kate said, I am a relationship self-care coach. So I guide women to reclaim their inner child and heal their wounds so that they can show up in their adulthood relationships in an authentic way, acting from a place of love instead of from fear and self-doubt, which is usually what your inner child is acting from, based on, their environment that they grew up in, basically how you grew up, how you learned to be in relationships, how you learned to show up in the world as yourself, and what's kind of holding you back. So that's what I do with women. It's a lot of self-worth, a lot of healing your wounds, looking at your shadows, and understanding if the you that you currently are is the real you, or just the you that you thought you had to be because someone told you to be this way or made you be this way.
Yeah.
So that's what I do.
Fantastic. I want to ask you a question just back for ladies that are still learning a lot about inner child healing and this journey. What are shadows? What do you mean by the
Shadows.
word?
So I guess when you say shadows, it's kind of like your past experiences that might have been negatively affected you, so to say, or kind of experiences that you find challenging that you don't necessarily want to face. You've maybe pushed them aside for a very long time, or maybe you've kind of had a memory blank. Maybe you've blocked it out because it was quite traumatic for you. So your brain didn't want to remember the pain, and so it suppressed it. So that's what I kind of mean by shadow work. Now, sometimes shadow work can be, really uplifting, and you get this immense relief from it because you've really healed a part of yourself that you'd forgotten about, but it actually just needs a little bit more love and compassion and understanding. And that's very much what the inner child work is. It's kind of reclaiming the child from the shadows and saying, it's safe. You are secure, you are loved, you are accepted. And you just added meaning to things that you couldn't fully understand as a child. But it's that meaning that you added back then to survive that's holding you back. So that's very much what the shadow work is understanding your conditionings and rewriting the narrative, because at the end of the day, it's all down to your beliefs about yourself and whether they're the beliefs you want to hold on to or let go of.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I think so many women will have questions around why for starters, women that are in relationships with married men, so many have different experiences to how they got into the situation. Some find themselves constantly attracting that kind of experience. Others are like, how did I even get myself into such a situation? And all experiences are completely different. One question that I do want to ask is for the women that have an attraction for unavailable men or married men, what could they start to look for in regards to the inner child healing that can support them on the journey in finding someone that is ready to be fully present with them?
So this is an interesting one because why you were attracted to people is often, it comes down to masculine and feminine energy, first of all, is what I would say. And if you're very much in your wounded feminine, is what I would call it, is if you feel like you're overgiving, if you're not able to kind of trust your instincts and to be in control of your emotions, you're likely going to attract a wounded masculine partner if your strength is feminine. So this wounded masculine is unhealthy. First of all, it's not someone you want to be with because they're not in their power, and you want to attract someone who is in their power. So the wounded masculine is going to be someone who's controlling, who sees relationships as a transaction. So often people who are married or taken already may have the need to have someone else because they're trying to satisfy an unmet need, and sometimes that unmet need is physical connection, it's sex, right? So very much why you're attracted to a married man. You can look at this in different ways, but this is my belief, and I will say this, it's not the only belief out there too, but you could be attracted to them because your wounds are trying to heal, and that's your inner child trying to heal itself through another person. And you need to really figure out what wounds are coming up for you, what unmet needs you have lying beneath the surface that is attracting you to this person. First of all, what energy type are you that's also attracting you to this person? How are you showing up in the world is what I would say. Bring it back to you. But, it's going to be different for everyone because everyone has different past experiences. Everyone's been traumatized in a different way. Everyone's perceptions of relationship based on who they interact with, what they've seen over the years, is going to be different. So it's very hard to answer that question without knowing the full background of someone. But absolutely. I would say, ask yourself what wounds are coming up for you, or what is your motivation or your intention behind being with a man who's essentially unavailable for you full time.
Yes, absolutely. So how do we start to spot these patterns if they're unconscious? If they're unconscious and we're not sure of what they are, how do we begin to acknowledge them in our life?
Journaling is the best way to do it, is what I would say. Ask the right questions to yourself. Kate, you're a coach, so hiring a coach who can help you dive deep into what's coming up for you. But I would say that behind every behavior is an unmet need. And you just need to figure out what your needs are, and how you prioritize your needs is based on how they were met when you were a young child. So you can very much look at the relationship that you had with your primary caregivers. It's not that you are blaming them or that you're shaming them, but rather you're taking a look at what the dynamics were at home, because that's where you first learn about relationships. It's within the home, and seeing what they were like, what needs were met, what needs weren't met, and are those same needs that weren't met in childhood still being trying to be met in adulthood, so to say. So it's really identifying those unmet needs, because essentially they're driving your behaviors.
Absolutely. Fantastic. So for the women that are in these relationships, how do we step outside of the relationship to gain clarity when we feel so immersed in it?
It is very hard to do. I will say, if you're in that situation, I'd imagine, I have never been the other woman, so I can't say. But I do know that if you're finding it difficult to step away from a relationship, it would be important to ask yourself, what is keeping you there? If this man isn't available to you, why are you staying there? Is there a fear coming up for you? And if there is, what is that fear? Is it a fear that you're not going to be loved? Is it a fear that you're going to be lonely? Is it a fear that you're not going to survive? Because at the end of the day, if you look at yourself as an animal, these are all survival strategies that you currently have. So you're trying to survive in life. And it's about really reparenting yourself to kind of make sure that your attachment isn't to this man, but rather you have an attachment within you to your inner mother or to your inner father, whatever way you want to reparent the inner child. But that your attachment is anchored within you, so that you are secure in yourself and you're not depending on someone else to make you feel secure or to make you feel loved. That has to come from within you. And when you can really reparent that inner child within you, you find it much easier to kind of separate yourself from this man who's unavailable and really take a look at what's actually going on here.
Yes, this is big. So what are the signs of fear of abandonment?
So a fear of abandonment is basically a loss of love or a loss of connection at the core. That's what it is. It can show up in various ways. I will say fear of abandonment is going to be different for everyone. Of course, it depends on the relationship with your primary caregivers or caregiver, if you only had one. But when you have the fear of abandonment, let's say come up in terms of loss and connection, it might be the fact that the man has lost love or lost connection within his relationship. So maybe he's trying to seek love or seek a connection with the mistress. And it's, what connection is he trying to seek from the mistress? Is it emotional? Okay, that's fair enough. But if he's telling the mistress that he's going to leave and he's going to walk out on this woman, it might never happen, because if he's just missing an emotional connection in the relationship, he has everything else ticked off. So it can be a little bit of a challenge, I guess. I don't think someone would walk out of a relationship if it was just emotional connection that was missing, because you can build up emotional connection within a relationship again. It just takes two people to put that effort in. But I hope this answers your question.
Yeah,
a bit
fantastic.
Long-winded.
No. It's all so relevant and powerful. I have like so many questions in all different areas with the women that are constantly asking themselves, is he going to leave? And they're holding on. And they themselves have that fear of setting that boundary and potentially losing him if he's not able to meet their standard of what they're looking for in a relationship. How can those women reparent themselves to create the safety in themselves that they're going to be okay whilst they're setting a boundary and a new standard for what they're willing to settle for?
So I would first of all say where you learned about boundaries. Because sometimes if you had an unhealthy relationship with your primary caregivers, whether they were enmeshed, that means that you likely have blurred boundaries, first of all. So you won't feel safe to set them, or you might confuse your internal boundaries or external boundaries with the other man. So you might feel that like you're one and the same instead of two separate people. So I would say, first of all, everything comes back to your childhood, but really kind of dive deep into why you feel bad for setting boundaries. So women often do feel bad because we have been conditioned to think that we have to be of service to other people, that we have to give ourselves away, and that we have to be inferior to men as well. So there's a lot of dynamics at play when it comes to boundaries and how you set them or how you don't set them. But bring it home to you. Bring it to your fears, bring it to why you feel uncomfortable setting them. Maybe it's a communication thing as well. So I would encourage you to look at, are you having healthy communication with this unavailable man? Or is it inconsistent? Is it unhealthy communication? Again, where did you see those dynamics play out in life? How did you learn that those dynamics are respectful or okay? Because at the end of the day, inconsistencies and hot and cold is not signs of a functioning or a healthy relationship.
Absolutely.
And you owe it to yourself, if you have to bring it back to what you want. If you want an available man, you want a relationship that's going to be healthy, that's going to be secure, that's going to be satisfying. And if you're not getting all of your boxes ticked off, so to say, why are you staying?
Absolutely. Women, a lot of the women that I work with are on the verge where they've said, I've stayed for so long and nothing's changing. He says he's going to leave and he doesn't, and they eventually break it off. But what they find themselves doing is they break it off and then get back with him, break it off and get back with him. How do you suggest women deal with the emotion that's coming up within while they're going through that no contact phase?
So first of all, I would say 30 days, no contact, because, after any breakup, it takes on average 30 days to actually get to the stage where you're like, okay, I can do this, I can handle this. But often what happens when you get into a relationship is there's obviously a lot of chemicals in the brain going on. So you get a dopamine hit off this person. So it's kind of like a drug, so to say. It's like an addiction that you have where you want to read over the texts, or you want to look at the photos, or you want to reminisce about all the times that you met up with this person. So you're getting your dopamine hit. And when you break up with someone, you don't have that anymore, right? Because that was your hit all along. But what I will say is you can get dopamine hits from chocolate and from exercise. So swap out this empty time that you now have. Do something for yourself. move your body, eat the chocolate if you want to eat the chocolate, because you can take up your dopamine hit from another source. It does not have to be this other man who is essentially not available to you.
So is it refilling the dopamine that's been taken away, or is that suppressing emotion that's trying to come up while you're going through the healing process?
Well, you'd have to deal with the emotions too. So this is where I'm first saying dopamine hit. So this is the first thing. Cut the contact. People say don't look at social media for a reason, because that's what it's doing for you.
Yes.
But in terms of your emotions, so if you find that it's hard to express certain emotions, you obviously learned how to express and suppress them as a young child once again. But it's really about creating space to feel the full range of emotions and to express them. So if you feel angry, grab yourself a pillow, scream into it, punch it, do whatever you want to really get rid of that emotion from your body, because as the book says, the body keeps the score. It doesn't lie. It's if you keep an emotion within you, you're going to internalize it, maybe take it out on yourself. So that can come out in certain behaviors such as like over-exercising, binge drinking, all of these unhealthy behaviors. There's an emotion behind it sometimes. But if you feel like crying, cry. It's okay to cry and just normalize feeling your negative emotions, because again, society has conditioned people not to feel them and to feel shame around them, because I think personally that people fear women being in their power when they express their emotions, when they get angry, when they get upset. We're called sensitive or dramatic or crazy, and we're conditioned not to feel them and to basically be like a doll and just to kind of look good, say nothing, be docile, and just conform to whatever the men say sometimes. And I'm not anti-men for any men listening to this. I'm just painting the reality. So if you want to feel emotions, it is okay to feel them. Obviously, you're going to have a lot of grief coming up as well. So to really work through that grief and not to bottle it in, use your support systems, reach out to your girls, hire a coach, see a therapist, do the things that is basically going to make you feel good and get you back to your full self, your whole self. Balance your energies too. If you're in your wounded feminine, you want to be in your healthy feminine. And if you're have a bit of masculinity, but make sure everything kind of clicks together for you so that you are showing up for yourself. And by showing up for yourself, you'll have a man who's going to show up for you. A real man who's actually going to give you that respect and show you what you're actually worth.
Yes, absolutely. But it starts with us. It starts with us first, setting that foundation.
Yeah, bring it home.
Fantastic. So the women who have gone back quite a few times and they're feeling powerless and they've kind of lost faith in their ability to set the boundaries and commit to themselves moving forward, how do you suggest these women, like, can they do it if they feel like they're constantly dependent and feeling that codependent energy? How can they shift the cycle for good when they've noticing themselves just keep going back to unhealthy relationships?
I mean, codependency is really hard to recover from. First of all, I've recovered from it myself. But it is very much about identifying your needs, your values, your boundaries, what's important for you in life. So it's very much about developing your own identity separate from a relationship, because that's what codependency is at times. You have a giver, you have a taker. The taker is usually narcissistic. And narcissism, people who have that kind of trait or tendency try to almost brainwash you and impose their identity on you, and try to get you to conform to their ways because they want you to meet their needs. They want to feel superior. They want you to be so focused on them that you're not focused on yourself. So I would say, again, bring the attention back to you. Figure out, what you want in the relationship with yourself first. So what does a healthy relationship with yourself look like? If you're thinking you're someone who can't meet your own needs, why can't you meet your own needs? Everyone can meet their own needs as soon as they're an adult. You can give everything to yourself that you're looking for in someone else. And your needs, your desires, and your wants are so important. I cannot stress that enough, because especially if you're anyway codependent, you think that you're not important and you neglect yourself because you're conditioned to think that for you to survive, you have to be of service to someone else.
Yes.
So that would be my advice when it comes to codependency. Again, just to keep bringing it home to you. Always bring the focus back to you, not to let someone else tell you how to feel, tell you what to do, or make your choices. At the end of the day, your power is in your choice. So take it back. Make a choice that's going to make you happy.
Yes, absolutely. Love that. Okay, and now questions on to the man. If the man is in a healthy relationship and it's working, it's working, but that scares him and he goes out and seeks to sabotage that relationship through another woman. What is it there that is going on in his inner child that he is seeking to create comfort in?
So there's many reasons for this, but let's just go into fear of abandonment again, because what could be at play here is, so fear of abandonment is that your survival is at risk, you feel under threat. So a potential reason why a man might stray, even if his relationship is healthy, is because he fears a breakdown. He fears abandonment. He fears rejection. So he wants to create a safety net. So that's where the mistress comes into play, because he might have a belief of, if my relationship breaks down, I'll still have the mistress. And that's a belief that might be coming up for him. The belief that if I can just keep someone else there, I'll feel safe.
Yes, so absolutely.
It could be safety coming up for him. Or maybe there's a belief of, not deserving happiness. Maybe he learned as a young child that he wasn't deserving of a happy relationship. Maybe he witnessed mom and dad at home as a child in fights and arguments. So he has a perception where a relationship isn't supposed to be healthy or functioning. So when he gets in a healthy relationship that's functioning and satisfying, he freaks out because he thinks that something must be wrong. And so he strays. And that's his self-sabotaging behavior, because he's trying to match his reality to the beliefs he has within him and the conditioning. So again, the inner child's coming up, what you learned about relationships or your needs again.
Absolutely. I love this. The other question that I want to ask that women often are asking is, will he leave his wife for her? He says he's going to, and that continues to go on and on and on. Is he ever going to leave?
I mean, I guess just from conversations I've had with people, it doesn't really happen. It doesn't, because either they're so heavily invested in their primary relationship, whether they have kids, whether they have the house, whether they have it all except one thing that they're maybe getting from the mistress.
Yeah.
They're probably never going to give that life up.
Yeah.
Again, I read the book State of Affairs for anyone listening. It's a very good book. If you want to grab a copy, it does provide a lot of insights as to how relationships kind of play out in affairs. But it also kind of warrants the question, is it an addiction? Is he an addictive person? Is it just he has an addictive personality and this is another addiction for him? So there's that side of it too. Is it that he's getting this adrenaline rush, this hit from the relationship, but he might not leave because he's getting everything else in the primary relationship. I would say that if there is a man in your life telling you that he's going to leave, he's going to be with you, he's going to give you everything, would you want to be with a man who is like that? Because what might happen is he could get in a serious relationship with you, and then you might find that you are the wife and he still has another mistress. That pattern is going to repeat unless he's what I call an awakened man who's getting help and seeing a therapist and actually aware of his conditionings and his wounds and what he is doing to both women, essentially.
Absolutely.
So it could be a loss of identity as well that he finds in the mistress. So he might be finding a part of himself that he's afraid to express in his primary relationship.
Yes.
And he's
that
expressing
happens.
that part with the mistress.
Mm.
So there's so many angles. It's
Many
hard to
angles.
pick one route.
Absolutely. And I think where it comes back to the women listening on this call, what you have sole responsibility over is yourself. And so it's about getting clear on what you ultimately want without seeking to change the other person. When you're clear on yourself, your own boundaries, your standards, then you can set that foundation and make room for that. And people will either rise to that or fall and drop out of your life.
Yeah,
Beautiful.
absolutely. Yeah, bring it home, like I say. Set your boundaries, understand what your responsibility is, and acknowledge that he has that same privilege. He has that same privilege to know what his responsibilities are and where his boundaries lie. So who's overstepping and where is the overstepping happening?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you so much, Katie. Would you like to touch on anything before we end this call?
I think we've covered enough. I hope I've given enough insights. I will say, just so they know, I have never been the other woman, but I have been the woman who has been cheated on. So that's the angle I'm speaking from. Has relationships that I've been in survived after cheating? No. But also they have been emotionally disconnected relationships. So
beautiful. Thank you. No, and it's so helpful getting perspectives from all different sides of the story. And that's why I loved chatting to you about the guy's perspective. It's not perspective, sorry, but the situation that he's going through while in this, because he also is vulnerable and hurting, or his inner child is seeking something that he is getting externally out of his current relationship.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I say, relationships heal when people heal themselves.
Yes.
So it's up to two people to heal themselves for a healthy relationship to actually form.
100%. I love that. I love that so much. Awesome. So how can these ladies connect with you?
So I'm most active on Instagram, selfcarecoach_, or else you can just check out my website, which is www.katieodonahue.com.
Beautiful. And right now you're doing an inner child course?
It's not released yet. I'm releasing an ebook tomorrow, actually. It's called Reclamation. So it very much talks about the shame factor when you're exploring your primary caregivers and their relationship that you had with them. I talk about the wound mate. So it's a trauma bond connection between a codependent and a narcissist. And I talk about the ways that you were wounded as a child and the hidden messages in society, how they keep you stuck because you think everything is normal, but actually it's just keeping you stuck and you can't heal. So I give you the signs as well that you've a wounded inner child, and that's essentially a platform onto my program, which is called Homecoming.
Fantastic. That's exciting. Where can we get your book?
My link in my bio on Instagram or my website. I haven't done it yet, but it will be up there.
It's coming up.
Yeah.
That's all right. By the time this is up, we will be able to access it, I'm sure.
Oh, thank you so much, Kate. It's been such a pleasure talking to you.
Seriously, work on your inner child is so powerful.
Yeah, it's life-changing. I still do it today.
Me too, absolutely. It's exciting journey, constantly seeking more about yourself and finding different patterns that we run. One thing I do want to quickly touch on, a question that I do have, is what are some quick tips on healing your inner child that you can do, some self practices that are powerful to just start reparenting that inner child?
I will forewarn, with inner child work, it can get very emotionally heavy. So you have to be careful not to re-traumatize yourself, because sometimes people re-traumatize themselves and they don't have the support to deal with those emotions that they haven't expressed before, and they're coming up and they're getting overwhelmed. But the first thing you could do is write a letter to your younger self. Talk about an experience that you went through, what you didn't really feel you got to express, and express what you need to feel in that letter. Obviously, take care of yourself after you do write the letter. Maybe do a ritual, burn the letter after, like a letting go of that memory, accepting what happened, accepting yourself, and understanding that it was okay. You were only a child at the end of the day in that situation. And you need to understand that you as an adult now can create a safe haven for that child within you.
Yes.
And you can bring that child home to you.
Yes, beautiful. Awesome. Yeah,
So
journaling
that's
is
my
so
first
powerful.
tip, but there's so many other exercises, but like
we
I said,
can
I
go
want
to your page for that.
Yeah, journaling is the best way though as well. Ask yourself the right questions to get those breakthroughs and to heal yourself.
Yeah. Questions leave clues. Awesome. Thank you so much. I really appreciate having you on this call to talk about that topic.
Thank you so much, Kate. Anytime.
No worries. You enjoy.